We're live.
All right, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our work session for 4/12 of 2021. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First thing on our agenda today is going to be a continuation of our Board of Health discussion on procedures addressing nuisance and conditions. So, Director Locke and Cody, if you guys would like to step forward. So my college thesis wasn't this big, and I didn't read it 2 seconds before I got presented.
This is just part of the statute.
Okay.
It's just,
Just.
it's pulled straight from the Title 25 part of the revised statute. It's basically discussing creation, government agencies. It might be pertinent for the planning department to be here, because I've gone over some of this with you all already, but planning department was not doing that.
I think, yeah, Don's here,
Okay.
so we're good. No, I just making sure that we're all in here.
Oh.
So before you start on this education component here, Cody, I think what the big push is from cleaning up the property down on 7th Street or J Road, whatever you want to call it, and then now we have this other issue in regards to 21. So, under our land use code, we have something that we can work with, which is what you're saying is not your wheelhouse, that's planning's. So, what is absolutely, so when we know, or if we can prove, or it's been brought to us, that the raw sewage is being dumped on the ground?
Good question.
Okay, so where do we go from there? Obviously, I realize that if they want to go dig a hole and go to the bathroom on their own property, there's nothing under Regulation 43 that we can do to discard that. However, from just viewing the photos that we've been sent and everything that has been brought to our attention, what can you do?
So, like you said, Regulation 43, basically if we were bringing them into compliance as far as raw sewage is concerned, that's essentially getting, if they had a porta potty, it would suffice. If they had a pit toilet, that would also suffice and meet those requirements. That's why I do think the land use code is a better way to basically, maintain their compliance with that. Now, as far as Regulation 43, which I have attached kind of statutes in regards to OWTS. That's in the latter half of the packet. Basically, the statutes for the OWTS, as far as that is concerned, it's primarily how those systems need to be, installed and what that situation is. So one of the tricky things is what is considered residences on these properties, rather it's trailers or camping or however it's defined. If they are required to have an OWTS system per our land use code, then they'd have to adhere to the same regulations that go for every all of the tens of thousands of systems that are already in this county. And so they would have to make sure that it's engineered. They would also have to make sure that it's installed appropriately. I would do a pre-operational inspection along with an engineer, and then we'd do a final inspection before it's covered up, if that's what the county decides is appropriate, for these systems. Now, if they are trying to just meet the minimums, basically they need an outhouse, or they can also use a pit toilet. And then also per Regulation 43, one thing that it goes into quite a bit is our setbacks. And those setbacks are required to protect, well water and several other things. And setbacks so far in Regulation 43 are 50 feet. And so even on, their own property, if they met a setback of 50 feet from their well, then as far as sort of regulation are concerned, that would be allowable. Now, granted, if you're not testing your water, they're not going to know if there's coliform bacteria in it, for the residents, if that is a primary concern. So I do think that is probably a recommendation, as I have received complaints of, neighbors that additionally have wells. And if there is any concern about contamination for drinking water, we don't do testing at our health department, but Durango does. And basically we have like a little test kit. It's just a little cup that they collect water in that can be submitted.
Right.
But once again, even if that water is contaminated, obviously that's really important. But if the systems are meeting setbacks, then we kind of have to go through some state water quality folks and regulations like that. If that makes sense.
Okay, so, I don't know if anybody has looked at the OWTS for down there, but I don't think anything is permitted as far as that. Is there, Don?
There's an old mobile home
Yeah.
that has a system permitted.
So would that be the one kind of like in the, I'm gonna say the middle of that property, but,
Yeah, I think it's like a brown looking old mobile. I mean, it's on a foundation, it's fully skirted.
right.
Not an RV that's skirted.
So,
Then the owner claims that there is another septic tank that they supposedly do have hooked up.
Do we have
But
record?
you have to have drain lines running to it, you can't just say it's over there somewhere and be 200 feet away uphill.
Do we have record on site of any septic systems? in our
Yes.
base?
So as far, on the 21, like Don said, I do believe there is, there's a adequately permitted septic system there.
when was it installed?
Oh, I would have to pull that up.
But there is one right now?
Yeah.
One? And what about just a storage tank? Because if they're actually using one of those buddy, what do they call those, tank buddies that you can actually haul from one site to the other, and it's like a wheelbarrow? You've seen those. They use them at RV parks. Is there a tank permitted for that?
Not that I know of, not off the top of my head. There's not a vault system or anything like that permitted.
And you don't know the year the
I'd have to,
OWTS was permitted?
I would have to pull it up.
If Christina gets the address, can she look it up, please?
Yeah.
What's the address?
6434 Road 21.
Okay.
No, it's 6330.
6330 Road 21.
Road
21.
It's under Belden, and the guy that's there is Terry Moore, or Brian Moore.
But it's listed under the
Belden.
Belton.
Brian Moore is supposed to be purchasing it. Of course, he's also supposed to be cleaning it up.
So you're showing some pictures right now for the screen check. When were these, when did we get these photos? Are they current? Are they
They're,
after the letter was received from Mr. Belden?
the- they're they're about 2 weeks old.
Well, obviously, per the land use code, we've sent a certified letter that has been received, which addresses all of the setback concerns on the south, which is the south boundary fence, where these, I can see in this picture, one, two, well,
Oops, sorry.
Did you
several
guys send
lined
out
up on that
new
south
letters
property.
too?
Right now, I'm waiting for more certified mail, the green slips that are attached to envelopes. The first letter that we sent was returned, and it was sent to the basically current resident to the property address. But from last week, I know it needs to get sent to Belden. Is that address in SmartGov, the mailing address? Or where?
No, it's on the assessor's, property vendor card.
Oh, okay.
I can get it for you. The address is number.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we need to get that sent to them, make sure they get it.
And we're not going to wait for certified stickers. It needs to be sent today.
Okay, and it won't be certified
Why would it not be certified?
because it has to have the certified, doesn't have to have the green certified card on it as
So
being the
what are
part
we
I get
waiting
back.
for?
It's basically something from the post office that allows us to certify mail. That way we can get like a certified receipt that it was
Okay.
received.
And why do we not have that?
I've got it in my office, I'll do it first.
We can always take it to the post office too.
Yeah, and yeah, they were, I ordered them when I sent out the first batch. We just don't have them yet.
You can
Okay.
get them at the post office.
I think that's what she just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't want to wait, because every time we wait, pretty soon.
Because we can't
it's-
start it until they receive their,
Well, they've received the
Notice.
2 letters. They've received one from planning, and they've
Right.
received but they haven't received anything as far as
the help.
from the health department or from the environmental side of it. Correct?
Correct, yep.
Because you got that back. When did you get yours back?
Sorry, what was that?
When did you get your return receipt of your?
Well,
mail?
they just returned the whole letter, and it was, I don't know, a week and a half ago. Yeah, these things. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, so go ahead, Cody, go on with what you wanted to talk about in your packet now. I was just asking some questions
Yeah.
up front.
Absolutely. So I think, kind of like I was saying, for OWTS, basically they have a compliance system, and for the other, for many of the other units on the property, rather they're RVs, mobile units, if those are considered like residences or primary or accessory structures, or what is defined in our land use code as requiring, a septic system, that can be, basically we can ask them to install a septic system, which isn't necessarily required. Like I said, they could just go with a porta potty or, a pit toilet. But mainly the reason I bring it up is because I want to make sure that we're addressing the root cause of the problem with the property. Because I can ask them to get a porta potty, but from many of the complaints that I've received, this seems like a very kind of very low on the list of issues that folks have with this property, many of which are outside of my, control. And so, in my opinion, if we got, if these structures were removed, or if there were not folks living on the property in the same way, these other things would come into compliance.
But in your opinion, we're not in compliance now, or do you have any idea?
So it would depend on how the RVs are considered, what they're considered in our land use code, what they're going to be considered by our planning department, I guess by you all. Because they
Well,
do have a function.
I'm just looking at what's under the nuisance standards, under item number 32. And this is out of the land use code, because I think this is where everything is, I mean, it's got to comply or not comply with what we have to govern by. And it says other significant adverse impacts. So it states pertaining to health, which public health is why, I think is why some of this is coming back to you, the safety and welfare of the citizens of Montezuma County. And that's it. That's kind of all that would really kind of pertain to you as far as health. Now there are others obviously in there that, well, radioactivity would probably be subject to you, water pollution obviously.
Well, in the health, for public health, that's, you know, I would kind of like more direction on that, because really from a public health perspective, we, per state statute, we have signed on to Regulation 43 in order to, in large part, protect the general public health. The regulation of 43 is used by 98% of the folks in this county who do have septic systems that are compliant. And so that's why in our state statute, they consider removal of nuisances basically the responsibility of the Board of Health. Because I do regulate, Regulation 43, and I work with folks, and I work with all the engineers, and I inspect those systems, and I'm there when, after the system is installed. But for these types of issues, which might be multidisciplinary, where it could be maybe they are disposing of waste, maybe it's land use code stuff. And basically the first few pages of this packet does include authority on how to address those nuisances by an established Board of Health.
Okay. So, as the Board of Health, now we're gonna change hats again. The Board of Health, we actually have staff, which is you, because you're the environmental component of that staff. Correct?
Well, I'm not on the Board of Health.
No, I didn't say that. You are the environmental component that we are going to ask or direct as the Board of Health.
I guess you tell.
Would you agree or not agree?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay. Do you understand what I'm asking, Bobby? So, as a Board of Health, we're going to ask you what your opinion is.
Yes.
Bobby, if it's vaccinations, we're going to say, is this compliant with the environmental standards under Regulation 43? Which means you're going to have to go do an inspection, which means you're then going to be able to bring us a recommendation. To say, I can't do anything, or, so as the Board of Health, if we say, Cody, I need to know if it says that the Board of Health shall examine all nuisances. We have a nuisance in front of us, and the nuisance is also in the land use code. So, now the source. So we have to have an inspection of the source, which is highlighted, which is what you're displaying right here, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now you're asking us as the Board of Health to direct you to say, go inspect this property. Is it or is it not compliant? So you're asking for direction. And I'm one person speaking. These guys will kick in anytime they want. But as I read this that you're displaying to me, and it shall destroy, remove, or prevent the nuisances. So, that's what we would do, okay? However, before we get to there, we have to have an examination of all nuisances. We've had an examination from these photographs that are all up here that have been presented to us from the land use part of it, that we've addressed those. So Dev sent a letter out. I think the landfill also, Shaq?
Yes.
And then, was there any others, or was that? Yours was the
that
third
it.
one.
Yeah, that was it.
So I guess as the Board of Health, we're going to say, okay, public health, we are directing you to go examine all nuisances. That's what it says right there, correct?
Well, it asks the Board of Health to examine all nuisances.
And as the Board of Health, we have staff people to do that for us. Or are you saying that it is our responsibility to go inspect it?
So that's basically my big point of confusion, because
Okay,
so as far as I understand it, I can inspect septic systems, and so if their system is failing
we're
or
talking
something
about
like
two
that,
different things.
That's
Now
my
you're talking
concern, though.
about a septic system that's been permitted, that's been installed, that's been inspected. We are now talking about a nuisance.
Yes.
So two different things.
Well, but that's my confusion, is because I do have authority in state statute to inspect the system, but not necessarily a nuisance.
I understand that. We, as the Board of Health, are giving you authority under the land use code that has been voted on by the people to go inspect or examine, I'll use the term examine, the nuisance and the source of filth. This is coming from what you just gave me, the very first paragraph.
So
Okay. Are you an inspector or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Then,
Go
we are
inspect.
giving you as the Board of Health, to say, go examine the nuisances. We now have the complaints brought forth. Now we have to take action. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so not you as the environmental specialist, you're going out there on your own. You have now been directed by the Board of Health to examine all nuisances. Is that making sense to you, Director?
I see what you're saying. There is a huge capacity component with that. There is no capacity for our environmental health specialists to go out and physically look at every nuisance complaint in this county. So
I'm not,
that's where my head goes.
so I'm going to be specific to one nuisance complaint right now, because we've only had 2 or 3 here recently. We've dealt with one, this is number 2, and number 3 is forthcoming. So I'm not saying we're going to probably get hundreds of these a day or hundreds a week. However, we still have to take some logic of how we prioritize these and say which is the worst. And by these photos that we have been given, this is a bad situation, and I cannot imagine full compliance. So we've already got the planning department has I don't know if the term recommendations, or at least you have the 10 days to get back to us so that we can figure out a plan moving forward on the planning part of it that goes against the land use code under the nuisances. But under this one, when it is pertaining to health, that's where we have to we rely on you to say, hey, here are my recommendations. You are our eyes, you are our inspector, you are doing it. Now you're saying you don't have the capacity to do that.
Plus, I also would have a potential safety concern too.
We also have a sheriff's department. If you don't feel safe, you can also take which there again, if that's what you're relating to, then
And it wouldn't be necessary all the time, but.
No.
I mean, there-
So if somebody had a cell to hold their waste and stuff, who would inspect that to start with?
So
If that's the process they're using?
it would have been not necessarily you, but
But it would have been
the health department
right?
through the environmental.
So it would have to be an engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not us.
Which is,
Well,
yeah. I mean,
But who
they-
who inspects the cell just like you would a
A regular.
regular
So-
deal?
One site.
so it would be me. Yeah.
That's just what we need to know if it's there and if they're in compliance. That's the biggest thing. And then, if they're not in compliance, then it falls to us to,
We know they're not in compliance with.
Then
the
it would
land use
fall to
code.
you to destroy, remove, or prevent, but if you need
Right.
to delegate destroying, I gotta volunteer.
But we can't go to there until we do above.
Rob, I need a dozer.
We have to do, everything has to be systematically in a chronological order to get to the end.
because right now, we don't even know, they may have a system in place that we don't know about, but until it's looked at,
However, they're not in compliance with the land use code. They've got that, and Don will be dealing with that as far as their setbacks, so on and so forth. So is all we're addressing is number 32 that I can read here on the nuisance standards, because you still fall under this, under other significant adverse impacts. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is just the documents that have been given to us to deal with. So, I look at yours, and I think we can get past this first paragraph. I kind of choked on it a little bit, but, and you can go on through it if you want to. But I think really, we can cut this short, because until we get this inspected, we don't even know what to do. We're obviously dealing with the land use code and with the landfill issues, but if there are other issues, we need to deal with them all at one time.
And so then, just to be clear, you want me to look at this property from the Board of Health's authority? Because in my current position,
That's the only authority that you have, is under the Board of Health.
I mean, I have like authority through Regulation 43 through the food code.
Regulation 43 is still underneath the Board of Health. Everything you do is under the Board of Health, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, it is. Because Regulation 43 was adopted, correct? Therefore, once it was adopted by the county, which is why we have engineered septic systems, it's one step higher than what Regulation 43 even states.
yes.
Okay? So the county has adopted Regulation 43. Therefore, the Board of Health, at whatever time it was, I think 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that now falls under the Board of Health directing or accepted it as Regulation 43. Correct? You guys don't accept regulations on your own. The Board of Health has to accept those. So, as the Board of Health, I'm asking to say we need an examination of the nuisance and the source of the filth. If the filth is running into an open canal, an open whatever, then we have to go on, and if it causes sickness, which again, it comes into an opinion, but we have testing of water quality that we can do, and we can get down here to where it says we can destroy, remove, or prevent the nuisances. So I hope I'm making myself very clear. You are a staff member that works for us that has adopted Regulation 43 as the Board of Health. Now we need an examination of the nuisance.
And then do you want me to wait for a letter response before I go on their property?
Well, you have to have
Yes.
permission, absolutely.
Yeah,
You can't just trespass.
yes, exactly. And that's
and
one
then
of
if
the,
they don't give you permission, then it's up to us to get you access to that
Then we have to take
property.
the next
Okay,
step. But
good.
there's a process that we have to go through to get to the bottom. But just to say I can't do anything, I'm going to go back to this very first highlighted sentence that you highlighted for me.
and I mean, I just needed to know, like, that I have this authority, because as far as I understood it, and from what I have heard from other states, other counties, I don't. And so it's not that I can't do anything. I do Regulation 43 all day, but, my reading of this is for the Board of Health to examine these nuisances. And if you want me to do that, that's, you know,
So-
We have to rely on your
We-
expertise. is
We
the thing.
hire staff. What you're saying would be the same thing, I could look at planning or road and bridge or IT. If the IT department come and said, hey, I can't go out there and look at this computer, you guys need to go look at it, that's a waste of time. I would go look at a computer and say, okay, yeah, it looks like a computer, what does that mean? Or Don could say, go look at this. We hire staff to work underneath us for that reason. Does that make
Okay.
sense? I
Yep.
don't have your training, I don't have your education in public health and what is and what isn't. We'll make the decision, have no issues making the decision, but we have to examine the nuisance and the source.
Okay.
I think this sounds like a good plan, a good strategy. And we have a Board of Health that's it's active and engaging with us, which is awesome. So I think working together on this is the way we should address this.
Mhm.
And then, if we can, and I know we'll be revisiting these issues, because clearly, if this happens every week, twice a week, 3 times a week, that's another discussion, because
Right.
we can't have Cody out doing these inspections all the time solo in that department. So,
I
again,
understand that,
we
but
can
that's
deal with
a,
that in the future as this evolves.
correct. And it may evolve quicker than
Yeah, I don't know.
not, depending on how many of these nuisance complaints that you get. The first one was handled relatively easily with the landfill, the planning, and we got responses from those owners right away. And we might hear too if he gets this other certified letter from you.
I would suggest
know
you
what?
get with these two gentlemen over here and ask permission to draw water, or have them bring you water from their wells, because they're pretty close. And we'll see if there's any contamination of the water source. And if that water source is flowing into the McCalmont, we have a real concern.
Well, and that has to be handled by a because we don't do any of the testing. You have to drop that off it. I can provide them with a test kit
Yeah,
though.
we've got the
Yeah.
kits in-house.
Right, and it has to go to Durango to get
Yeah.
tested,
Are you
which is
gentlemen
a
willing to do that?
2-day test.
Yeah, just
Okay.
let us know what you need.
Sure.
Believe me, we want them done.
So if you're living on the north and the south, or north and east and south,
I'm on the north and east.
so it's easy enough to test your water wells, and it's easy enough to test the water in the creek or the,
Yeah, you can access
Whatever.
the creek from his property, my property, either way.
and that's a good test to say, yes, there is, or no, there isn't. I mean, that'll establish it real quick and easy.
Anytime you don't feel safe going, you just call the sheriff's department and have them do a civil standby if you don't feel safe doing it, because they can do that
After you get permission.
after you
Yeah.
get your permission.
You-
If you don't get permission, then come back and tell us, hey, they wouldn't allow us on there. Then it's up to us to,
Right. Yeah, don't trespass anywhere.
Yeah.
That's gonna get you in trouble.
or take Jack with you, he'll back you up.
Send Jack.
So,
I'm still waiting on a date. Do you still want the date for that permit?
yeah, I would still like to know when the date is, because was it inspected? Was it closed out? Was it finalized?
It was approximately 1984 that Craig Wolf first put that system
For the,
in.
Original
Septic
septic
system for the main
system.
trailer.
and what about, so we still don't know whether there's a holding tank for,
What I'm aware of.
and the one that they said was
And
pumped
do
out?
you get a permit for the holding deals too?
You would
and
have to,
stuff?
You're supposed to, yep.
because then it would act as an RV park.
So then actually,
you-
they don't have a permit to have it so there's our,
So there again, if they're dumping from an RV buddy, I can't think of the term, but it's like a wheelbarrow, you stick under the trailer, they dump it in there, and then they go dump it into a holding tank, which is done in RV parks everywhere. So,
So I will send a letter and go from there.
do you want to go through the rest of these two, Cody, or?
No, I mean, it's,
Because the removal is gonna have to be later, that's down the road. which then comes to the board to remove, which is us.
We just need to know from you that they're in compliance or they're out of compliance. And
That's
then
it.
it falls to us.
And then
to-
we'll take actions underneath what we can and what we cannot.
Okay,
That's all.
all righty.
So I didn't have to read the entire document. I read the first paragraph.
But now we can read up on the rest of it.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
I think we'll have to get back to you on this, because.
You can just email it to us.
Okay, because they're pulling all kinds of documents with, but none of the addresses are matching what you guys told me of 6330. So, I think Cody's just gotta get his eyes into this system and see what it is, so.
Yeah, and some of these properties, they have,
The original permit would have been to the Craig Wolf.
Neither one of these have that name.
yeah, and a lot, some of the permits for some of these properties, they also have like 8 different permits, but they're all just slightly wrong, or they have a slightly different address, or, and those are pretty common for a lot of these properties as well.
So just to kind of bring it up to speed, Don, do you have anything to add with, because you did receive your response back, correct?
I had both the owner and the occupant in my office.
Okay, and they are going to start moving forward with,
I was told they were supposed to have 8 of those RVs off the site last week, but the neighbors say they added 2 more.
so we have a plus instead of a minus. Okay. All right. Thank you, Cody, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you need clarification on something, you know, Director Locke is with us all the time. She can email us, you know, obviously go through your proper chain of command, but I think I think we're on the right path to make sure that everybody stays where we need to stay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cody. Director Locke, do you have anything else?
No, I think we have a good game plan. We have the support of the Board of Health to go check this out once we get the confirmation that the owner is okay with us doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, no, I think we're good. So Cody, you'll follow up with them on the date, because I'm not getting it straight from what they're looking up. It's not matching. So, okay, cool.
Thank you, guys.
You finished with them?
Unless you have anything else you want to add?
I'm good.
Okay. Gentlemen?
I'm good, thank you.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Next will, Tiffany. You'll be next, number 2.
You guys having a wonderful Monday?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you guys for allowing me to get on the agenda. I listened to the Board of Health's, the meeting you guys had in the afternoon. I listened to it from home. I did have some concerns, and I applaud, I don't recall who it was that brought up a treatment facility for our area. Joel, you had mentioned the Grand Junction Salvation Army. I know one of the ladies, or the Denver Salvation Army long-term treatment facility. It's considered long-term because it's 6 months. The one I attended was in Grand Junction. I do believe they have shut down, I know for sure, the men's facility. It is a wait to get a bed in one of those facilities. It used to be that our county jail basically did the detoxification side of it because somebody was housed in the jail waiting for transport to go. We no longer have a detoxification facility that I am aware of. Nobody wants to pick up that liability. And I totally understand why. And I'm going to give you some facts. So When the legislation, Colorado legislation passed marijuana, it brought in an uptick of heroin use. Heroin withdrawals can be very dangerous, just like alcohol withdrawals. I understand why nobody wants that liability. In the last 3 years, per our law enforcement, what information I got from them, we have seen an increase of 63% for felonies, and this all relates to supply and demand. That being said, I can vouch for the fact, a little over 15 years ago, I got myself in trouble, and I'm very proud of the fact that out of over 472 applicants, I was one of 22 that was granted a full and unconditional governor's pardon. That's very rare, and I believe that I have what I have today and have survived what I have because I meant to do good with it. And if sharing my story here with you helps, and the struggles of trying to overcome drug addiction, and the fact that a lot of people look at drug addiction as the drug addiction, drug or alcohol addiction, or whether it's a pornography addiction or gambling, they look at that as the problem. That is the symptom of the problem. There is something else going on, and the method or the avenue that people choose to self-medicate, that's the problem. So removing people from the environment, whether it just be full access to the community, whether it's a prison sentence, whatever it is, being able to remove people from that atmosphere long enough to provide enough sobriety to be able to deal with not only one, what is the core problem, but then we're taking on the PTSD, we're taking on the rapes, the abuse that happens while living that lifestyle. When it comes to methamphetamines, 90% of the time it's not the drug that kills people, it's the lifestyle that kills people. I am a survivor of rape, I am a survivor of kidnapping, and it took me years and years of counseling off and on to get through the PTSD where I could be a functioning part of society. One of the things that our judicial system doesn't understand, and I was victim to this, is you take somebody, and drugs take a person down very quickly. It mimics a relationship that takes years to develop with people. It mimics that in a very short period of time just by using with that person. People learn that they no longer know how to build a relationship, a healthy relationship. So you're taken out of jail, you're put back in to society, you have to go register with the probation department, and normal functioning adults function at this level. A person that's suffering with substance abuse problem is only capable of functioning here. They're not capable. Probation says you have to have a job, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to go to these meetings, you have to do this, and you have to meet this standard, but you're only capable of achieving this. A treatment facility done correctly bridges that gap and gives that person the opportunity to redevelop the relationship skills, deal with the trauma that either happened before and or during the substance abuse. Without that, there is no success rate. I am probably I'm 3% of the United States population that achieves full recovery and is integrated back into the community I came from, and is not only capable of being productive, but excelling. I hear from my law enforcement friends all the time that knew me when I was a drug addict that see me now, and they tell me all the time it's a success story. The Salvation Army, everything I learned when I went through the Salvation Army, I still use today. There was, you got penalized for not pushing your chair in at the table. Manners, common manners. I remember, and they do have in the Salvation Army thrift store, basically, they take in all kinds of stuff, and all the people who are in the Salvation Army do go and they work at the thrift store. They take in the new donations, or they work on the floor organizing things, and that is part of what your rehabilitation program is. It's teaching you to be accountable, to be on time, and you get help in that. I remember being there, and a year after I was raped at gunpoint and pictures were taken of the process, it finally hit me. And I had to be taken back, and I was non-functional for 3 days. Well, if I'm on a regular probation program and I did not have the resources to deal with what had happened, when the reconnection of mind and body came together, and that's common with rape victims, I would have relapsed, I would have used, I would have gone back out, or something else would have happened to me. That is imperative to providing the correct resources for people. We know that the drug cartel has strong ties in our community. At any point in time, 10 to 15 pounds of heroin and/or meth is housed here. We've talked about how our area is a hub. I grew up here. It's always been a hub. The difference is the drugs used to move through here and very few of them ever stopped. That is different. We know the China white heroin is here. We've seen an increase when the borders were shut down. We've seen an increase in heroin use to gap the opioid that people were not able to get. Fentanyl is on the rise. They are cutting meth with fentanyl. And let me tell you why they do that. They used to do it when I was a drug addict, and they did it with heroin. You can have 3 major dealers that all sell meth. The heroin, the stuff I got that had heroin in it, I didn't like it. It made me nod off. It was the opposite of the high I wanted, but I always went back to that person. And that is because of how addictive it is. And we have that. That's been going on for over 15 years. The difference is now they're not using heroin, they're using fentanyl. I did some research before this, and on August 11th, the Cortez Journal posted an article that Deputy Mancus Marshall stops a car with 125 fentanyl pills. Opioids that was such a high addiction, and I went through my addiction with opioids, and when I was no longer able to get it, it was when I moved on to methamphetamines. Opioids kind of affected me differently, chemically. In that same article, Sheriff Nellen was quoted saying, quite a few overdoses from fentanyl and meth and heroin in our area. If we can't provide treatment in our own community, it could be your child, it could be your grandchild. All of these people who have these substance abuse issues matter to somebody. Those families, you talk to Marion Dodd, what she would have given her soul to save her grandson. And it didn't happen. They sent him to rehab after rehab after rehab. But you know why he kept relapsing? Because when he had to come back here, as you do when you have court cases, we have no resources. No resources at all. Almost everybody I know that went through prison, drug abuse, almost every single one of those people that I knew then are dead now. And without the resources we need within our community, we're never going to see a change. It's only going to get worse. In dealing with the trauma that happens during drug abuse, there's child abuse. I witnessed child abuse. And I chose to do nothing about it at the time. I was more concerned about the drugs. And that's something I have to live with. Watching that child get spanked by an arm clear up here, going to the pantry and looking and seeing that there was fuel used for manufacturing dumped all over the food that was in the pantry, and that child had nothing to eat. And another home, another child was using the bathroom in a 5-gallon bucket because they hadn't paid the bills, and he was afraid to leave his room. So now that creates the cycle. And without the resources we need here, that cycle will never be broken. I realize the expense of building a long-term treatment facility with a transitional housing is expensive. But if we can't save our own neck of the woods, if we can't make a difference here, then what? We're never going to change anything. We have all these transients that come, and they bring in their additional supply and demand, and it exposes other people. Well, our drug cartel, I don't know if you're familiar with how drug cartels work. We, as Americans, have a sense of humanity. We don't go to somebody's house that owes us money and chop their fingers off. We don't go and take their daughter and say, you know, your daughter's going to be my prostitute for the next couple of hours to help pay your debt. We don't do that. They do that. I was pulled up to a motel room, and the guy had a hole in his foot. I left. I was blessed enough to be able to walk away from that situation. 3 days later, I asked if anybody had seen him. They said, if you want to live, you will never say his name again. That is what is lacking when it comes to the cartel. We don't do those things. The cartel does. And they've had strong ties here. They have housing facilities that they use on the reservation. How far can you travel from the border shack all the way how many miles can they come to Cortez without ever getting off of Indian Reservation? That's why they use it. That's why they use it. It's just like Mexico, only not as harsh. We can't change right now the facts, and it's not up to the Board of Health to change the fact that these drugs are being brought in here, that it's going to continue to increase as the border has no restrictions now, but we can do something about the services, you guys can, of what we offer to our community members. Candelaria, you said something about you want to make sure it's sustainable. With the supply and demand of what we have for substance abuse, all forms of abuse, I don't think that we need to worry about whether or not it's sustainable. The other aspect to look at is the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. I almost guarantee you that they would be purchasing beds through their IHS funds for their own people. You look at the limited amount of beds within our state and even our region. People would send people here to utilize those beds as well as our own community members. Insurance companies, if you have private insurance, will pay for rehabilitation. Some corporations will pay for rehabilitation for that bed. When you are housed in the Salvation Army, they automatically apply for medical and food assistance on you. Grocery stores donate. We had the saying, chocolate cake is great, because the grocery stores always donated a certain amount of food instead of throwing it away or providing a surplus that couldn't be used in the food pantries. Our grocery stores would be behind this. We know from the articles that have been published that Southwest Colorado will not be part of the program that uses medication for to work people off of opioid addiction. Sometimes the courts will make methadone clinics mandatory. I was in prison with women who were terrified to get out because they had been clean off of heroin and they were court ordered to go to methadone clinics. That's not an element we want in our community. We have people that are supposed to go to methadone clinics. We don't even have one close. That's keeping that cycle going. There were 2 deaths last year in Mancos where large amount of fentanyl was found in both of the bodies. Sometimes people want help and they couldn't get help. I wanted help and I couldn't get help. I had to be court ordered to get help. The court order solution in one of my pit stops to try to gain recovery and gain myself back was cars. I'm not dogging cars at all, but you send everybody there that's court ordered to be there without the structure and accountability that comes from a live-in facility. I ended up relapsing. I was probably one of 2 people in that entire room that was trying to stay sober. Everybody else was going out on break and using drugs in the parking lot. So guess what I did? I relapsed because I did not have the proper resources and I wanted help. I didn't want to be that way. Nobody wakes up one day and says, hey, I want to be a junkie. It happens. It happens in that lifestyle because we don't have the resources here to do something about it. Yeah, you can walk into Access and say you need help. They'd probably tell me the same thing when I took my 13-year-old daughter who was suicidal. $300 for the intake, $150 an hour. I'm sorry, I don't have that money and I make too much for Medicaid. Don't know what to tell you. Are there any other resources? I asked them. They said no. Same thing with drug addiction. I wanted help and I couldn't find help. When I got out on prison, there was a lady who ran a private facility. I had to get permission from my parole officer to go to a private facility for my additional counseling once I got out of prison that was mandated by parole, but it was also, I knew I needed it because I did not want to go back to a place where people were court ordered to be there. There's a large amount of issues that come with living in that lifestyle that cause trauma. Anything that you are incapable of mentally or emotionally dealing with at the time can cause PTSD. It doesn't have to be an act of violence, but generally speaking, it is some form of act of violence. The things people witness, I got taken to jail 24 hours before Marcy Stewart was shot in the head with a shotgun. I was never so happy to be in jail in my entire life. I spent Christmas there and I was happy. I was the only one happy because I had just spent a little over 24 hours being pistol whipped with a long-barreled gun, a revolver, held hostage in a closet, walked into a room lined with plastic, up and down both the walls and across the ceiling. So when they shot me and blew my head off, it was easy cleanup. These are the things that happen in our community. And this was 15, 16 years ago. If you don't think that it's gotten worse with the increase of heavier drugs and tighter drug cartel roots in our community, I don't even want to know what goes on. I do, but I don't. I used to have anxiety attacks for 3 days after going into high schools and talking to kids about what the drug world is really like. If there's any way to get a long-term treatment facility with a 3-month temporary housing for transitional, I implore our Board of Health to do whatever you can. Whatever you can. The only thing that saved my daughter when she got into meth is she ended up in trouble and she ended up in a girls' home in Grand Junction. She can never come back here. She had a gun pulled on her and was terrified. And she was 15. Addiction doesn't know age, it doesn't know profession, it doesn't care. It will take anybody and everybody. I've known of people that have worked cleaning rooms in our hospital that were needle junkies and would go in the bathroom and do their drugs and then go back out and finish cleaning. Doesn't care. But if we don't have the resources to help people, what do we have? And mark my words, it could be your daughter, your granddaughter, your wife. I wanted to leave time if you guys wanted to ask me any questions. I am an open book. There's nothing in my history that I have ever hidden, nothing I am not willing to share with you. Absolutely nothing.
Well, I commend you coming forward today like this, because this is stuff that everyone needs to know.
If we go down this road, you willing to help?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I know a whole lot of other people that will too.
I mean, we've kicked around some ideas, and there's, I don't want to say there's any money on this settlement through opioids, because in my opinion, it's not enough to even touch the outerlying issues of it, but I guess it's a step. Now it's just a matter of trying to make a plan to see how to get implementation of something to move forward. We realize that definitely there is a need down here, even just as simple as you said in the beginning, just the detox. We don't even have that, which is probably one of the largest things that we have here to deal with on a daily basis. So, yeah, again, thank you for coming in. I don't...
Are grants an option? I realize grants don't cover everything, but if we got together enough grants, would that help bridge a portion of the gap?
Grants are obviously always an option. The issue that scares me about grants is that grants are not always funded. I mean, we're looking at SRS grant funding right now that we typically got for schools, and that's going away this year. So there's another grant that's now disappearing, and I think grants are going to disappear more and more all of the time. So to answer your question, yes, it's a way to bridge it, but is it a sustainable way to bridge it? I don't think so.
No, not sustainable.
And that's what I'm saying is I think that we have to be creative enough before we build the plan to build the plan so that it can stay into perpetuity, because I think that's what the ask is. I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, we hopefully have a long life to live and we can make a difference. But here again, nobody up here is going to say we don't have a need, because I think we all see the need. Yeah. But how do we get?
It would be a terrible thing to start this and then 2 years into it, 3 years into it, have to close the doors.
I'm concerned. I mean,
yeah.
Why did Grand Junction close the...
I'm not sure. I know the director that was there when I was there, a really awesome guy. There's a men's facility on one side and a women's facility on the other side, and he left a few years after I had left the program. They ended up with another director, and because they ended up with another director, I didn't stay in touch with the facility because it was the director I was close to. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure why. I know the one in Denver's still open, and I do believe there's a 30-day or a 21-day facility that's in Denver as well, but those are the success rate out of a 21 or 30-day
Yeah,
facility is next to nothing.
That's, yeah, because that's just basically a very short term.
Well, most addictions, you don't even get them out of your system for
No.
3 to 4 months before you can start transitioning back to a functional.
Well, and that brings me to another point, so I'm glad you said that. The other side of it is, I think one of the reasons why I relapsed when I know it is, when I left the Grand Junction Salvation Army, is they had a no medication policy. One of the reasons why I chose to self-medicate was I needed to be on antidepressants. I had severe adult ADHD, and I also suffered from depression. So it was a no medication facility. Would never take, I've learned to deal with my ADD and use it and funnel it. That's why I'm such a busybody. But the depression side of it, and that's a lot of that not being treated with drug addicts because of the damage it does to the neural pathways in the brain and dealing with how the brain communicates with itself. Most people will have to be on an antidepressant the rest of their life, and which I'm fine. I take a low-grade antidepressant, and if that's what I live with for the rest of my life, then hey, I'm okay with that. But that being an integrated part into any type of detox or treatment facility needs to happen. And it does take a long time, and understanding, having people that's educated and understanding what the withdrawal symptoms are. So a person who's newly gotten into drug addiction, drug abuse of a certain kind, understanding what it feels like when you're coming off, that's normal. You're going to feel this way. Having somebody that can tell you what to expect, and the anxiety and the panic, the electric shock feelings, the muscle cramping, and you also deal with a lack of nutrition. It's not like you're into taking care of your body when you're a substance abuser. That's last on the list. You think you look like $100, but you really look like a rusted penny.
Well, I think what you're saying, Commissioner Stevenson, about the length of time it takes to detox, there's also a length of time it takes to transition, because even if you get somebody cleaned up for 3 or 4 months and you send them out, you send them back to the same stack of unpaid bills and the
Right.
same broken relationship and the same lack of a job, you're still,
I think that's where the transition comes in,
that's
is that
where
has to be
transitional
cured
housing
within
comes
that
in.
transition, which is not 30 days. That's not a transition, that's a,
No, it's not. And
That's
back
a
again to what I
detox.
said, you go through the judicial system, and their standard is here. You are physically, mentally, and emotionally only capable of dealing at this level. So that's why we see the fail. That's why our success rates coming out of the probationary system is so small. Very small. Even depending on how long you've been in prison, they send you to basically a halfway house. And that's, institutionalization happens so quickly. I did 6 months in prison, in the minimum security prison. Granted, I had done about a year day for daytime off and on in county because I couldn't stay clean. When I got out and I went to the grocery store to get milk for my kids, I'm looking at all these choices. You don't get any choices in prison. So the transitional move after the intensive inpatient rehabilitation is essential, and it has to happen. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. I thank you for hearing me out, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
thank you.
Tiffany.
Okay, Mr. Engelhardt, let's have a discussion on P.2 road to start with. Fantastic. You want to bring Doug Roth in here also, Shaq? Because I had been emailing him back and forth, which,
How you doing?
Yes, the boss.
oh, this is change orders first.
Yeah.
I gotta have myself, sir.
So, I wanted to update you a little bit and come up, or maybe have a couple ideas here for some additional paving this year, asphalt overlay. When we went out for bid, we went to 2 big companies and got the prices back. We did rather well with Four Corners, so compared to their prices to do the 8.5 miles that we were proposing, and our estimate, we saved about $230,000. So rather than put that back in the bank, so to speak, I wanted to look at other roads to go pave. So
City?
I looked at Road N. Road N was a good one to do. It carries us through, we've already did from 491 to 180, or 145, and we wanted to try to get on across the 29, because we're going up 29 anyway, to connect that loop. And so it fit into that $230,000 budget. So then we were looking at that, and then this conversation came up about chip seal, and I always wanted to get the 184, but I just didn't have the funds for it this year. So thinking about that, if there's funds available, we might try that and just tie that in. That'd give us a north, south, east, west. Then the only thing left is Road L going out to 32 that we can catch in the next year or so to get that whole area upgraded and updated with asphalt. So okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
This is kind of what I was talking to you, and I'd like to, I can't take all of the credit on this because this is actually coming from Shaq and Phaedra. So the money that we're going to get from the ARP funding the American Rescue Plan, for those of us watching, we could reallocate that $300,000 that we have for that project, take that out of the ARP funding, because that is one of those specific items, are the broadband, which would allow us to do this top of rope cap to 184, and then that does tie in that whole system. We move that chip seal down, is what you're saying, right, to the 27-23
Right.
loop, and then that whole road system has been tied together. We have 29 road from 184 to 160. We finished, was it 2 years ago, we finished Lebanon from 184 to the city limits, and then we have also finished to Oak Street going south, which is 25 road again, that goes all the way to the landfill.
Or one back to 160.
So-
1G.
Obviously, we can't make any decisions today, but
No.
actually, I think it's a good proposal as far as reallocating those funds, and we can do that too, right, Shaq, as far as that? Because we had that into capital, we can
Yeah,
just use the
that
money from the
money's in
broadband,
capital.
from the ARP, and then everything is still covered. And then we actually
Assuming
finish-
that's how the final guidance comes down from the Treasury Department, yes.
Well,
But-
that was written in there. I can't see that one leaving because there's so much of those dollars and cents for broadband. So I think it's a good proposal. Again, obviously, we can't make a decision today, Rob, until tomorrow, but we can have any other discussion that you guys want to have. Plus, we finish another, I mean, when did they come to us in January with that proposal to try and get 27.3 in one?
A little later in
chip seal?
January.
Was it February?
Yeah.
Anyway,
February, I
this
think.
year.
It was muddy.
We've seen it this year, which then again ties everything from the city into the county, and we have that basically a hard circle.
Yeah.
So,
The mud brings up another question, Rob. What are you gonna use for dust suppression till they open the canals?
I wouldn't even plan on that too much this year. We were told today that there's a lot of water shortages in Mancos already, and they went on call down McCamel today. So all the normal water locations we get water from, like Dawson or any of those, Hartman, there's no water available. So I wouldn't put a lot of faith in a lot of that work this year anyway. So unless things change, it could still rain and we could have some water. But right now, it's not looking real good.
If
so.
you could order some rain, that'd be great.
I put it in this weekend, and it's maybe
I was-
tomorrow, so.
I was approached here a while back that Billy Gilliland said that if we needed another water source right there where he lives, and that water doesn't run into McElmo, he said.
No, we've got water at Lewis, because we can draw out of Dawson,
Oh, yeah.
and that's a different tributary.
But if you do need a spot, he said that we were welcome to put
Oh,
it.
that's good to know. Yeah, we've got a pretty good spot over on Road U and 20, and we get water out of that creek, because it doesn't affect the call down McCamel. But McCamel went on call today, so we're already out of water in Cortez, and we don't even have water in canals yet, so. anyway, this whole thing, this paving thing is always works this way. We always plan and then we get a good price and we just put that money right back into roads rather than put it in the bank and wait for another day. I like to put it back into asphalt. It's working. And Road 29 was on the list. Road 29 all the way to 184 was cut in half because of funding. And if this is an answer to finish that north-south route, that would be a big
Well,
help.
that road in, it does need some,
And N needs it too, and it's got a good foundation. I know it's kind of chippy out there, but we can fix the chippy and then put a layer over it and it'll make a good road, so. So the second sheet there is what I'll approach you with tomorrow, is basically the original contract for 2021 was the $941,989 that we voted on and said, yes, we'll accept that and go forward. So the savings off of that with funding that we could get maybe with this ART funding, we would do those other two roads as change order number one. Being it's a change order under the original contract that under the guidelines of the county rules and regulations, we don't have to do an open advertisement. We can just do a change order to that contractor, so at that price. And they've accepted they gave us the bid to continue with that much work at that price, so.
So really is all we're looking at then would just be the top item, correct?
You're looking at 275,739, yeah, based on, all being equal and we don't have any problems out there that we don't see, as far as a little more leveling asphalt or whatever, so.
Right, correct. But basically that's at the best.
That's the best, and the worst
Guesstimate
would
right now on
be
the tonnage.
300,000 at the worst, Jimmy, to be honest with you, so. And I don't see that happening. I drove the road again today and it looks pretty good up through there. It's better than the south end, so.
And they're done with all of that fiber on that. Everything was done last year, right?
Fiber's pretty
Or-
much done. I was talking to them last week. There's some tie-ins they still gotta do throughout the county, but the major work looks pretty good right now.
And what
so.
about Montezuma Water Company?
Montezuma
They were
Water
also
finished up that stretch from Road M all the way up to Road P. They just wrapping that up last week and some cleanup, and there's no plans to go any further north, and they're not going west on Road Nancy, so that's a good tie-in right there. And we're talking to Steve, we're in pretty good shape with them, so,
Okay.
yep.
Do you guys have any questions?
No.
I mean, we finished tying in a lot with the proposal. And like I said, we already have money allocated for that. If we can use that fiber money from the ARP, we can just reallocate it and then we finish.
Again, assuming nothing changes from the Treasury Department.
I don't, well, I have a call at 5 o'clock, so I'll ask that question. I don't see it happening, but hopefully,
Okay, so it's fair enough. If it does, if something happens, we'll.
if it does,
we'll
then
punt, so.
we stop.
We're just making some progress that we didn't anticipate. Next year, our goal would be to head west, get out west of 491 and start picking up some of those older L roads, M roads, Nancy roads out across there. So it just picks up that one last piece to get headed that side of the highway, so.
I like it.
Okay.
Plus, we finish 27.1 and 27.3,
Yeah,
which
helps
Yeah.
with a lot
Which is
of
gonna
issues
help.
there, yeah.
There
a
were-
lot of people that
Yeah.
brought in a huge petition to us first part of this year. I can't remember.
That's
when.
been on the list a couple of times over the last 3 or 4 years. We just never found the money to take that one on when we needed help elsewhere, and we're catching up with some of that stuff now. Now we can take a look at that particular one. And it helps with the snow plowing immensely because we don't have to take a road grader blade up there to do a gravel road in the middle of a bunch of paved roads. They
Yeah.
can zip in and out with their snow plows and be done
With
with it, so.
one of the small
Mhm.
snow plows
Right.
and make it fast.
Right, so.
I like it.
So it is a good fit to do that too, so. So that's what I'll be bringing tomorrow, if you guys wanna discuss it some more later or whatever, but that's what I'll be in front of you tomorrow, so.
I think it.
Okay.
I think it makes good sense. It's just a matter of now
just
we'll just
assuming we can use the
check that
ARP money.
check that ARP money.
Yep.
So, okay, well then I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rob.
What about P.2?
Oh, P.2. Don't leave yet.
Yeah, you're not getting out of here. till
Don't
we
leave
settle
yet.
that deal.
Look at him grinning over there.
We ain't leaving until we get that deal talked about.
Okay.
Boy, we've gotten a lot of emails today on that.
You paved it, it'd be all right.
So where's Doug?
He's at the city
Oh, that's right.
every Monday afternoon.
Oh. Huh?
And I texted you that too.
Oh, sorry. I've got like 30 texts already, so. anyway, I was reading Doug's email this morning, and I think I had carbon you on one of those, Rob. And you had brought this to our attention that prior to the ANS with the or the aquatic nuisance species and closing the gate for the boat ramp at Pewitt, we did draw water. One of the emails referred to that. But we don't do that anymore. We don't use P.2 road.
We probably wouldn't be doing it anyway when we chip sealed 33 and 34 in Nancy a couple of years ago. That pretty much took the need for that water source out of the picture. That would be completely out of our way to go out there today now to get water. So,
Right. So reading all of these agreements, and then I did talk to Adrian Archuleta, who will be on our Zoom meeting tomorrow. They do, or they're hiring within the next couple months a grader operator, and then they will have their new machine. I don't know if they'll get it this year, but I'll let him explain all of that. But just a synopsis of what he had said, well, here it is. Basically, the email that they would be able to take on and to do some maintenance with that for the people on P.2. I think where the rub comes are the people on P.2 loop. So P.2 loop comes just to the west of P.2 road. And they have all of the signs that they presented, and they don't want anybody, which really are only 2 or 3 landowners that live on P.2, going through P.2 loop, which is, I think, is what's created the fight. So, long story short, it's really has nothing to do with us. It's on a 30-foot easement, and I can't see that we take another mouth to feed. It's really between the state and those property owners there, unless, am I not seeing something right, or?
no, that's the way I look at it. So,
When Doug sent this deal, he said from 1967 to 95, it was shown on all the maps as a county road. What happened?
Still
in
shown
nine-
as a county road,
It still shows it as a county road?
a red county road.
No, a
Red.
green road. A green road.
It was a
It
green road?
says, yeah, that's what
to
he
start
said.
with.
I don't know.
So how did it go from a green road to a red road and?
Probably because of the easement situation and because there was not a 60-foot easement and we didn't have agreements in place to make it an easement. And there's probably lots of green roads in the day. Everything was green, you know?
Yeah.
Then they invented red and then they got just sorted out and straightened out to what's really there. So I'd bet you went back in the archives, every road in Montezuma County was green once, you know, including the yellow ones. Forest Service, you know? Dolores Norwood was probably green at one time, if you want to know the truth. So I imagine that's kind of a ambiguous statement. I think they were all green at one time.
There was no red, green, and yellow signs.
I think that's my point, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
in the beginning, and now it's
Yeah.
been,
And I think if there would have been a 60-foot easement there established back in the 60s or whatever, there would be a chance that it was a maintained green road, you know, but there's never been one.
I think that changed with the address numbering system and all of that.
A lot of it
he
was
did
that.
mention
Yeah.
something about a 60-foot easement in his email to us. What is it?
Well, it said up
it's
to,
Not to exceed. a
not to
60 foot.
exceed, but
It
I think
doesn't
the
say-
actual easement wording is 30 feet. But it
But
says not to
here again, the
exceed.
only agreement that we can see in places with the, which was the DOW at that time, and the landowners of Lopez, I think, right, Frankie?
Yeah.
Lopez? Because it's not even on a section line, it just kind of goes through their private property.
Mhm.
Um,
I think there's a lot of history there that I don't know anything about, but it came down to private landowners agreeing with the private owners to get an access to a lake to go fishing. And it's done with the DW's, the Division of Wildlife. And there was documents in our office that showed where previous road and bridge supervisors and other people tried to work out deals to get it done, and it didn't happen. And so there's probably a lot of issues there that are underlined I don't even know about. But I do know we don't have any jurisdiction on that road or enough easement to build a road, so.
Because this one deal, it says that P.4 was a section of road that Lopez's give access to the Division of Wildlife. But I don't
know
even
that.
see a P.4 there.
Unless it's on the other side of the lake,
It's on
the
the
east,
east side.
east side and coming in from 35.6.
side?
Yeah,
Off of 37,
37, okay. So,
whole other issue.
On the east side.
you're right,
We're on the west side.
yeah.
Well, I did go out there and drive that road the other day, and there is two humongous speed bumps on each side of that guy's driveway.
I had a long visit with him also. He called me
The
out there.
rest of it's just kind of rough road, but those two are speed bumps that are there.
Sure
That's
they're
not-
not ramps?
They weren't.
Gosh, he must have been driving an old, not smooth vehicle, because I went right over him, didn't know I went over him.
Well, I got a 91 GMC pickup, and it'll jerk your teeth out when you hit a bump like
And,
that.
and Joel doesn't have four-wheel drive, so
Yeah.
he knows when they're bad. That's right.
But just to say it's a rough road, it's not a rough road. There's a speed bump there, and it's about that tall, and
But I am encouraged to hear from this standpoint that Fish and Game is getting some equipment, because these are their agreements. They
well,
should
and that's,
take
I
care of
think
it.
it's their
Yeah.
road, yeah,
And I-
and
I
it's
think-
not,
Shaq, can you pull that email up that I got from Adrian? And he will be here tomorrow too, and I think that's gonna kind of resolve it. His issue, the gentleman that built the speed bumps, is that they're going too fast.
Mhm.
And the people that are accessing off the P.2 loop are the ones that are going too fast, because they're going in and out. It's the shortest distance to their subdivision on it'd be the north side of the subdivision. So he's like, well, how do you guys restrict me from driving on your road, but you're driving on my road?
That's the way I
Which
always
is
look
not
at it.
our-
Why don't you put a gate at the front end of P.2 loop and make them go out 35.6? There's a road out of there too.
There is a gate there.
I know, they enjoy their gate, don't they?
There is a gate
Yeah,
there.
So,
I looked at
it's
that.
it's a mixed bag of goods, and I feel for the people, there's some issues there, but I don't think the county has any business being
every
there.
bit
right
of
now.
it's civil between
Mhm.
them guys.
Well, and the DOW, which they have the agreement for
Right,
that.
right.
But it's only
To the
to
lake.
the,
To the
to the
lake,
lake,
yeah.
and that's it.
Who owns the lake?
The
State.
DOW.
State?
Yeah. That and irrigation, probably entities, I would assume, right?
I don't know if they use
I
that
don't
for
think they pull
irrigation.
any
It's just
irrigation
for-
water
it's
out
just
there.
for
I think
fishing and-
just
I think
fish.
it's just a state.
Okay.
I think just Summit is for irrigation,
Summit.
right?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah,
I've
I
never
would-
heard of any irrigation.
When they closed it because of the mussel, I knew the state had that authority, and I visited with one of the guys up there about getting some water out there, and they said, no, we just can't let you, so it's just become no use to us anymore, to even be in there, so. And really, the truth is, when we chip sealed all that up through there, that took the need away too.
Yeah.
That was a long ways to go get water, and that was a short distance to Road 33, and that's what got us in and out of there, so. But now we don't even do that, so.
So I mean, here again, we can't make a decision today, but I think we have enough history that it's really a private road, and
Yes.
it's between the DOW and basically the Lopez family that signed the agreements on the easement.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're not getting out of here that fast?
Well, there was a call, I got a call today from one of the gentlemen up there, who probably want to visit with you about some funding through the state grants. There's some DOW funding coming up that might be something where they would work with the county to get more road improvements done. But again, it's not a funding issue as much as it's an easement issue, a property issue.
We can't start funding
You-
red
Yeah,
roads and
or
stuff.
buy the
because-
land at a value that's worth the money, and I just, I'm trying to
Then-
pave roads right now.
Yeah,
so.
then we're having to actually, I don't,
Because there's a million red roads in this community that they would love for the county to take over.
So, it just doesn't fit right now at this point.
okay,
Now can I go?
nope,
Nope. Okay.
because Shaq threw something else in front of me.
Oh, Shaq did, okay.
What did I do now?
Who put this in front of me?
I put that in front of all of y'all.
Okay. So, I've sent this to you also. This is, CCI sent it to me on the LID, that we're contemplating developing for the Mesa Sky.
You sent that to me?
subdivision.
I didn't see nothing. Okay, I'll look again.
I did.
I must have missed it, okay.
Did you copy Rob on that? I'm not sure that you did.
Well,
Anyway, I'm sure I'll get it now, so.
I'm sure you'll get it now. However, I'll go check on my computer to make sure, but I'm going to put this in front of you since,
Nope, you did not copy him. Do you want the marked up version on the screen, or do you want the?
you can put the marked up version on the screen. So some of this, obviously I know, or maybe I send it just to John. to
You
begin
sent
with.
it to John and the other commissioners and myself.
Because this is one of the things that Douglas County uses for an LID. Now, we can move this, we can change this as long as we stay within the statute. So some of the questions that Shaq has on here, obviously, the first one would be relatively simple. The Public Works Department just put /engineer, remove that, would be the road superintendent, which would be you.
I'm not an engineer.
No, I said remove that.
Oh. Yeah, but I'm not doing no estimates.
No, no, well, just
Okay.
hang
If I see where this is going right now, and I haven't even seen the second sheet yet.
Aren't you leaving that?
I was, I might be leaving here in a minute, yeah.
So,
This sounds more and more like you want me to be a consultant again. I've already addressed that.
No. So a lot of these things for what we're going to establish, John would have to read the statutes, but a lot of this stuff we could just cut out because the county staff is not doing the work. A lot of that is not even applicable to us. And I'll see what John's, what he has to add. But basically, it's so that we have an agreement and we know how to set it up through the neighborhood and we know when to terminate it, which there again, that's going to be from their attorney to our assessor so that she knows how to put the overlay on it. And there you go, what he's highlighted. Does this mean private red roads are not eligible? So this is a private red road that we are considering. So it is eligible for the LID. So we'll have to see.
In this policy, if you adopted this, it wouldn't be. It said street improvements would only be considered for public streets.
I understand that. There again, this was just a template that we had because we didn't have anything to move forward with at all.
Yeah, well, you asked for my input, so here it is.
That would be removed. So basically, take that, look it over. We set 30 days before we even have the hearing, just so that we have our ducks in a row before we get to that point in time. And we didn't do a cost estimate for it either. We sent it out to private industry. So there's some wording that has to be changed. You can just basically, what he has highlighted there is you could just eliminate that. You could just cross it out. Pretty simple. So look at that. It's the first template that I've got sent back to me. We don't have a template that I can find.
We do not.
So we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know one either, so, yeah. I do think there is a difference between a road and bridge department and a public works department.
There is.
So, and I think it's a very large difference. So I don't like particularly looking at templates from a public works engineering department, but, so.
We can call you Phil.
Don't. This public works department sounds like something that would come out of planning to me.
Well, Public Works Department would mean water, sewer,
Exactly.
all of those.
Sidewalks,
infrastructure,
streetlights,
Which is
yep.
like what I said, we'll change that. So just look it over. It's a template. Again,
Yep.
this is just a template so that we can start moving this process forward.
Okay. Yep.
And we are going to have a hearing in 30 days.
We're going to have an election in November.
What's that?
are we going to have an election in November?
For what?
No.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're.
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, there's mention of an election in here.
Again, there's things here that we can just totally cross out. It's a template to start with. That's why everybody's looking at it to
Okay.
see what works for us.
How many of these have you done, Rob?
0.
Okay,
That's the issue.
That's
is
the
that-
same number I've done.
yeah.
And
The
it's
only
the
one I
same
know
number
of
that I've
is,
done.
I'm up to 0.
the only one I know of is back in the 90s, out on Road 18 at Goodman Point, there was a tax district developed to improve a green road. It was a dirt road, and it got improved to a standard county spec green. It was green all along to a county standard road, and those folks paid for it with a tax thing.
That's the only one I can remember.
That's the only one I know of. There might be some others, but they're far and few between, I think. At least we don't have any record of it at the road department that I have to deal with. I know that, so.
Indian camp, did they do something?
No, that was all approved by the developer.
Okay.
And through their plat, they had to build all of their roads on the interior.
And that's out there in the same area, right? That subdivision, Indian Camp? Oh, the
No,
one out on
that's
Road L.
out on L Road,
L
or
and 23
Ellen,
or whatever it is,
20,
right?
yeah, 24,
Right.
23.
Yep.
The land use code says for a major subdivision, you have to build it per county standards.
Correct.
But it
Which-
doesn't mean it's a county adopted.
No, it's not a county adopted
Well-
road, it's just built
That was
to,
just-
And I don't think we could do a local improvement district for a new development.
no.
I don't think.
No, that's not what it's for.
Yeah, I don't think we could, what's the word, subsidize the developer's fees. I think they'd hang us out to dry if we did that.
So, I'll send you a copy of this also, Rob, that kind of states what the LIDs do.
All right.
But just, like I said, I reached out to CCI to get who had the latest LID that we could format something from. I'll obviously send it to John, and then we can see what goes from there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I see what you're doing. Douglas County is a big county. Weld County, might as well be CDOT too, They get this stuff because they got that stuff, and we're not set up for all this.
That's
So
what I said.
yeah.
A lot of those paragraphs may be completely stricken.
That's where Public Works kicks
If
in.
you
That's a
see
whole,
something and it's stricken,
whole different world between Road and Bridge and Public Works.
You
Right,
may
because-
not be able to strike the elections part of it. That may be in the statute. John will have to research that.
He'll have to research the statute, but that's why they call it Public Works, because under our BOCC, under LIDs, we can do curbs and gutters, we can do streets and lights, which is more into Public Works. Drainage facilities, we don't have any. We don't have any sidewalks adjacent to streets. Energy efficiency and renewable energy production projects for residential, commercial use, and/or broadband infrastructure. So we don't do any of those, but it's just part of what it can do, and that's why I think they use the term Public Works there.
That's right. Yeah,
But
that's
we
why I
can
say there's a
change
big
it
difference there, yeah.
to fit our county. If you want a
Yeah, if
copy
the
of
city,
this.
if the city moves down there to Road H and entails that as part of their jurisdiction, then Phil Johnson would take this on, because he's Public Works, he does
He-
this kind of stuff.
he could at that point in
Yeah,
time.
you bet. Mhm.
So really, as all we're talking about is specific to the roadway.
Mhm.
So look it over. I
Okay.
apologize, I thought that I had sent it to you.
That's fine.
I did.
No harm.
Shaq hadn't given me the green light that I could send it to you yet, so I probably forgot.
That's fine.
That's probably it. Were any of you guys gonna jump on James's trail meeting?
For Dolores?
Because that's right now if one of you wants to go. I can continue this meeting with the other two.
I'll go jump on it.
Okay.
'Cause I think Well, because he was gonna,
I could do my thing tomorrow. It won't take me 10 minutes tomorrow, than my regular meeting stuff.
okay,
Seriously.
I'm good with that, because
He's doing it twice.
really I wanted to talk about the combined courts. I mean, that's another issue that has been on our plate for the last 2 years, that we need to take action on it and
Did
figure
email
out a
this to you
plan.
guys earlier, though, so
Yeah, I got it.
I need you to look at that for tomorrow. So maybe sometime just talk about that. It's real boilerplate, straightforward.
Thanks,
Yes,
Rob.
son. Thanks. See ya. See you
Hey,
tomorrow.
Rob.
Yeah.
That's all that's for. It's just coming up with something that we can give them, and he's in agreement, so everybody is happy.
Okay,
And they're
We're
not
still on
saying
YouTube.
anything. This is coming from me. I just don't think it's right to not have one.
okay, we'll look it over. And I'll go jump on that meeting then, I guess, or we can all
Okay.
go jump on that meeting.
We can talk about combined courts and then get in there.
Shaq can bring you up to speed on the combined
Can I
courts.
stop the
Yep.
stream? Are you
No, we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything I can answer before I walk away from here? Otherwise, I'm retiring right now.
We're gonna
Nothing
talk
from me,
about
you can,
Combined courts landscaping.
I'm
well,
not gonna do that.
Okay.
whoops. No, that's, hey,
Oh,
did you guys, he was going to do the fiber project update, but,
That's what I was saying. I can update him tomorrow.
yeah, but then you asked if they had any questions, and we're on YouTube, so now if they have any questions, they
No.
get the opportunity to ask
you
them.
got any questions?
No, not for today.
They didn't want to talk to me anyway, see?
I don't blame them.
I told them either.
Okay, so when our courthouse was put in, it was put in without any landscaping. So it's all a dust bowl over there and overgrown. So James has put together some options for landscaping it. Well, I could probably start by showing you what it looks like right now. Yeah. Just move out here.
Keep going north and left.
I'm going. It takes this thing a second. Right now, that's what the landscaping looks like. In case you're wondering, that means there ain't any.
And
I
what
see a
was
couple of
the
trees.
original plans and stuff?
I don't know that there were original plans, but
Didn't they
here's-
plant trees and stuff over there when they were doing all that?
Well, they've planted some trees around the edges, yes, but there's nothing out in the middle. So here's some concepts that James has come up with. Let me back out of this a hair. Make this down to 25% so. So as you can tell, some of these have more xeriscaping with rock and gravel, which actually, while it might conserve on water, there's definitely a trade-off when it comes to weed management. It can be just as, if not a little more difficult to manage weeds. And then, of course, grass is water intensive and requires mowing and other types of maintenance as well. So,
Well, I would think we would want to go as much xeriscape as possible, just because of the water shortages and
Yeah,
the
are,
upkeep of it.
are we
Right.
tackling something that, at this point in time, with the drought the way it is, that we need to tackle?
well, we got to manage the weeds there either way.
Right.
So that's something that's happening one way or another, so.
Yeah, so, you know, whether you put rock there, I mean, rock won't have anything to do with the drought other than it never has to be watered.
Right.
James has also put together a spreadsheet of approximate costs. I'd be happy to email that to you too.
Yeah, do that.
And so up front, obviously, grass can be a little cheaper than rock.
The hospital is working with MVI to bring water down to the hospital to help them. They're gonna buy some water to help irrigate their landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we could bring it that far or not.
Well, I think the hospital is meeting with MVI Wednesday night to
Okay.
have that discussion. So if somebody wanted to go to that, not you, you're gonna be in Mancos.
Again,
Remind me, would you?
Still,
Remind me and I'll try and get to that
Sure.
meeting.
sure, I'd be happy to send you a reminder of
well,
that.
if the hospital gets it to there, it wouldn't be very hard to get it on over to the.
No,
You wouldn't think.
Yeah, especially since it's downhill from the hospital.
We've already
The
got,
only thing is the draw in the bottom is,
we already own water, so.
Yeah. That's correct. So,
what time's our meeting, do you remember? I can ask.
I don't know what time their meeting is.
In fact, I know the ideal person to ask.
I think another thing that could be done, that we would have to include the bridge and the sheriff on this discussion, but we could plant all that as a garden, use inmate labor to well, I get in trouble if I say use inmate labor to plant and grow it, but have an educational class where we teach them gardening and then bring in CSU Extension, can all that as their canning class, and then give it to the bridge to feed them people with.
Plus this, all these county gardens that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
they could help.
Absolutely, they could. That's another opportunity. Let them do it.
Well, I think before we go any farther, see if we can get water to it.
Well, we can have that discussion Wednesday night.
If we get water to it, then.
Kent, do you want to go to that meeting?
That
Yeah.
changes a lot of things right there, because we
Oh,
don't
well,
wanna-
water makes a difference,
You don't
doesn't
wanna
it?
use
It really does.
municipal water for a
No.
project like that big and stuff, but if we can get our MVI water there.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this earlier, but if one of y'all put in a request for rain,
20%
I do it every
chance
day.
Tuesday of wetting rain, 20%.
Every
Sure,
morning,
that-
Shaq,
Then the wind's gonna blow on Wednesday and Thursday.
dry it all up.
Yeah.
I make that request every morning.
You're a little bit closer up here on this top floor here. You could,
A little bit of that moisture comes to the surface every night, and then the wind blows it away that day, so.
Yeah, wind sucks a lot more out than we're getting the last couple of years.
here we go.
Well,
Complicated system coming in for the remainder of the week. With good chances of wetting precipitation in higher elevations, but dry and windy in the lower elevations. The wind looks the strongest on Wednesday as the upstream flow begins to move our way. Thursday into Friday could be the wettest days through the first round of precipitation. Tuesday afternoon into Wednesday will be beneficial to some areas.
So you guys want to hold off and see how the water conversation goes?
I think
I think
so,
so, yeah.
because that would be the only way I would think we would wanna put greenery over there, is if we can get that water over there. If we can't get that kind of water over there, we need to just zero-scape it and.
Gonna cost us some pipe.
And if it's gonna cost a lot right now, I don't see leaving it just the way it is right now.
But
I don't see a problem with that either.
cost of water over there for landscaping with city-treated water is gonna,
Yeah, we wouldn't wanna do that. Until it's up and functional and running 100%, I don't see you spending a dime over there myself, but
They're open, they're having jury trials. That place was packed when
Back
we
at
went by
100%.
last week.
I
I don't know if they're allowing 100% for spectatorship in the courts, but I honestly don't know how often they filled that place anyway.
right.
So, I mean, but according to the governor's dial, yeah, they're open
Right.
up. But then, of course, according to the judge's edict.
I'm gonna ask Miss Vicky if she filtered anything off of the governor's dial.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you guys have anything else for this meeting here? Because we're still on YouTube.
I think we're done with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you guys can't make any meetings in this decision, but do you need a motion to adjourn, or should I just turn it off? Is that
We're not-
making a decision?
It's not a meeting, and I don't think we need to adjourn anything. It's